This is going to be one of the best videos you're ever going to watch if you are a first-time buyer in the UK, more so England, but I am going to bring you so many tips about the house buying process, things to look out for from people that have actually been through the process. So I posted a TikTok video that has done really well. It's got hundreds and hundreds of comments, and I am going to go through quite a lot of them with you today because some of these I completely forgot about, and I just think it's so useful to know. And especially if you're a first-time buyer and you've never been through the process before, I think getting an overall view from other people is just really handy. So hopefully you're going to learn something in here today, because there were some things in here that I didn't even know, and I've already been through the process. So let's get straight into it. So we've got a comment here that says, not something I wish I knew, but something I wish I remembered. The estate agents work for the seller. Now, this is so true. The estate agents will always have the seller's best interest at heart. So kind of don't believe what they say and just expect them to be a bit rude and a little bit standoffish with you as a buyer, especially first-time buyers. I feel like we found that out the hard way, and the estate agents were kind of okay at first and then they just turned a little bit nasty. But it's just definitely something to bear in mind. But they're going to do anything they can to push the sale through, obviously, whether or not that's anything positive to do with you. So bear that in mind. The estate agents always work for the sellers, they don't work for you. Another comment here says, never brush off red flags and don't be blinded by the over-romanticised TikTok feeling of owning a home. I was depressed for a month after getting the keys. Now, it is a little bit underwhelming on completion day because not a lot really happens. You get a call, you pick up the keys, and then you go to your new house. It is so much fun and you are really excited, but like, again, not a lot happens. And it's sad that this person was like, felt sad for that long after, because there's a thing called buyer's guilt, and it's basically when you complete on the house, you move in and you just feel guilty that you're there. It's really bizarre, and to be honest, I never actually had that. But what I did have was, when we moved in, it didn't feel like our house for a while, and I feel like that's because, you know, the walls were still painted in the same colour as when the sellers left it, and we just had to put our personal touch on it to make it actually feel like ours. And sometimes that takes a long time, you know. Some people don't do work on their house for months on end, which might have been the case for this person, and that might be why they felt that way. But once you start giving it your personal touch, I promise you it does feel like yours. But don't feel disheartened if you get like weird feelings when you move in, because it is very normal for a lot of like buyers when they do move into their first house. So something to bear in mind. Another comment here says, make sure the house is empty when you get a surveyor. Pay the full survey, change locks when you move in, and for the love of God, if you need to renovate, do one room at a time. I could not agree with that more. It's honestly overwhelming how much you need to do in a house if you're renovating it, or, you know, it's not a new build and it's perfect and it's a nice kitchen or brand new bathroom and that sort of thing. It does take time, and don't feel like, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, so your house isn't going to be done super quick. You need to take your time with it, and it costs money. Like, honestly, the costs add up super quick, let alone buying furniture when you're moving in and stuff, or if you're painting the rooms or renovating the rooms or buying home decor stuff. Like, just in general, it adds up real quick. Another one here says, estate agents will tell you lies and they work for themselves and not the seller. Interesting. So someone here says that getting a declaration of trust if you're buying with a partner can take much longer than expected. I don't really know what that is, but we didn't get that, I don't think. Someone else commented on that same one saying they can also cause lenders to withdraw their mortgage offer. And someone else said it would be very rare for a lender to have an issue with a DOC. I guess that means declaration of trust or something. At the end of the day, it's usually just how the house equity will be split. Usually it doesn't affect the lender's security. So there's a few conflicting comments there. I mean, I don't think we did that. Everything with us was 50-50, so that doesn't matter. My comment, the very first comment on the video was mine, because I was like, I need to show like what happened with me, is you can't take out a LISA, lifetime ISA, within the first year of opening an account. Great money saving opportunity, but only if you're looking to move in after 1 year. So that was an issue that I had where I couldn't take out my LISA and actually lost a bit of money. So I couldn't use the government bonus, and I also lost about 350 quid. So it wasn't great. If you're looking for a LISA, read the T's and C's, and don't get one if you're moving in within a year. Get one if you're looking to move in like 2, 3, 4 years later, because the longer you have one, the better it is. You can literally save £1,000 extra from the government as a government bonus if you put in the full £4,000 a year. So yeah, don't do what I did. Someone here has said, I wish I'd done more research on solicitors and not gone with the recommendation from the estate agents. Absolutely useless. Now, I've seen so many comments, and we experienced it ourselves with the recommended solicitor from the estate agents that the seller used. They were useless. They were really bad. And the estate agents, you know, that was selling this property did say to us, oh, we've got a recommended solicitor if you wanted to go with them. And we were like, oh no, we're fine, thanks, we'll just outsource it ourselves. I feel like there's always quite a lot of issues when they're recommended by the estate agents, and obviously they have contracts with that estate agent, you know, so they're going to try and push you to use them, but don't feel like you have to. I've heard bad stories that they're just not great. There's obviously going to be ones that are amazing and incredible, but like the general consensus that I've seen and heard is they're rubbish. So definitely bear that in mind. Someone here says, don't buy a new build, full stop. Now, I could go on about new builds for a long time, and I feel like they bring in more issues than not. And when we started our, you know, conveyance process with our solicitor, the first thing he said was, oh, the sellers are moving into a new build. That is probably going to be a bit of a red flag. I would maybe sit tight and bear with the process. And we were like, surely moving into a new build means like it's a positive thing and there's no chain and it's going to be quick. And he said, in my experience, that has never been the case. And he was right. We waited an extra 3 months for the property developer, so that was really fun. Someone asked on that same comment why, because we've just placed a holding fee on a new build, and the guy says it's just so stressful, all of the things that should have been signed off by the building site manager, just terrible lazy work. We have been in over 3 months and they just keep making up excuses or sending cowboys round. Honestly, it's not worth the stress. The house is lovely, it's just the work and the lack of care. So I think it's interesting that that person's experienced issues after they've moved in. I've just heard of the issues before you move in. I just think with new builds, be very, very careful and do your research on them, and know that it probably won't be a smooth process. I feel like there's always issues with new builds that I've heard and seen and experienced, obviously, myself firsthand. But if a new build is something that you really want, then I think definitely go with a decent property company and make sure you do your research on them and know that they are good, because the sellers that were moving into a new build with us, he was a brand new property developer. It was his first time ever doing this, and there was so many delays. Like, the house nearly fell through because of him. It was really annoying. So if you want a new build, just do your research. Someone else here has said that your completion date can change 3 days before the date you planned for it. Was meant to complete on Friday, but the seller solicitor are faffing, and now it could be end of next week or later. Now, usually when you exchange contracts, you have a completion date in mind and it's set in stone. So I'm wondering whether that person has an exchange date or not, because usually when you exchange, you set the date of completion and then you complete on that date, and that's what happened with us. So whether or not they've actually exchanged yet or not, because usually you can't change the completion date because everyone can do that. And if it's the solicitors that are messing things around, it sounds like they haven't got all their paperwork sorted yet. And that sounds to me like they haven't exchanged contracts. So that might be why. I'm not too sure, but that's just my take on it. Someone else here said, don't go with the cheapest conveyancer or the one recommended by the estate agent. So just a little bit of caveat with that. A conveyancer means solicitor. So when you're in the house buying process, you have a surveyor, which is an independent search that you go out and research yourself. And that costs anywhere between £300 and about £1,000, whether you go with level 1, 2 or 3. And that is something that you have to source yourself, and we done ours quite soon after our offer got accepted, just to kind of get the ball rolling with that. Whereas a conveyancer is actually another word for solicitor. So they do searches on the property, which is like legal things, council, water, buildings in the area, that sort of thing. And they're called conveyances, like they're conveyancers as well. But that's just another word. They are solicitors. So carrying on, going from the start, don't go with the cheapest conveyancer or solicitor or the one recommended by the estate agent. Go with a local one so you can stop by their office and get angry when they stop responding to your emails. Now, that is quite funny because our solicitor was about an hour's drive and we only went to their office once to hand in some paperwork, and I kind of wish their office was like really local, because we would have done that. We would have gone down there quite often if there was issues. Luckily for us, there was no issues on our end, but if there was, and they were local, we would be down there quite a lot. So I think that's quite a good point, to be fair. This one got 319 love hearts. Estate agents can and will tell fibs. That is very true. Let's see if there's any more comments on this. Someone said here, I second this. They will say they've had offers which they've never received, say there is more people viewing when there isn't, and even say when they've spoken to the seller about an offer when they haven't at all. Take everything they say as a pinch of salt. I think that is quite important when it comes to negotiating the price, and people are going to have different opinions about this, but we went lower and then gradually went a tiny bit higher and it was still under the asking price. So I think it's interesting that they can actually lie and say, well, this is what the sellers have said, just to get more money, because at the end of the day, the higher the sale of the house, the more commission they're going to get. So yeah, that's really interesting. Someone else on that comment said, this is what I'm going through right now. They've said I've had another offer that's considerably more, but also told us last week when we put in our offer that it's been on the market for 6 months with no other viewings. Bless them. But yeah, someone else here said, I had a sale fall through after I'd arranged my mortgage because the estate agent had continued to act for the seller, who had bailed on sale three times in the previous 8 months, but hadn't told me when I asked her what her position was. Dodged a bullet. Someone else here said, if you can, overpay on your mortgage from day one, even if it's £20 a month. Now, overpaying on a mortgage is, I think, so important, and like this girl said, £20 a month, it's not a lot, but it goes such a long way. If you can do more, please try and do more. You can do a free like mortgage calculator check on Money Saving Expert, so you can put in how much you can pay back monthly to overpay on your mortgage, and it will tell you how much it brings down your interest rates and stuff. Like, you can shave off years of your mortgage if you just pay off, you know, overpaid on your mortgage month on month. You can, if you want to, save the money all year and then pay it off in a lump sum at the end of the year, or you can just do it monthly. We're just doing it as and when, as the months go by, but the earlier you do it, the better. So that's a really good point. Someone here said, damn, reading all these comments, I feel like I've got lucky. If I had to mention one thing, it would be get a decent mortgage broker. Ours always kept us in the loop, chased our solicitors and does everything they can. Now, that's so interesting they said that, because our mortgage advisor didn't chase solicitors. They helped us with the kind of mortgage application, got that through, and then after that, that was kind of it. We spoke to them a little bit here and there, but in general, that was kind of it. So it's interesting that mortgage brokers can chase solicitors. I didn't know that. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. Someone else has said here, if anyone in the chain is selling a leasehold, it will take forever to complete. Now, I think a leasehold, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a leasehold is when it's like a flat, or you're sharing the land with other tenants or other people that own houses and stuff too. Like, a freehold is what we've got, where this kind of land or this area is yours, whereas I think a leasehold is when you kind of share that with other people. I think, I'm not 100% sure, so I can't really comment too much on that, but if you've got a leasehold, hopefully it doesn't take forever. Someone else here has said it can go as plain sailing as possible until the final hurdle. Be ready for anything to happen, and it can be absolutely out of your control. Now, that is very, very true. You don't have the house until you exchange, and really until you complete, when you pick up the keys, because even when you do exchange, you can potentially not get to completion. It's fairly lower, like the chance is lower for something to go wrong, but you really don't have the house until you've got those keys in your hand. But I think in terms of the out of control context, yes, a lot of the house buying process, you do feel quite out of control, and you have to kind of like let go of that control. If you're a control freak, then the house buying process is going to be a little bit difficult for you. So make sure you plan and prepare for that, and do things that helps keep your mind busy and helps keep you a little bit more calm and stuff, because it can be very, very stressful, that's for sure. Someone else here said, getting the keys is very underwhelming compared to what you see on social media. Yeah, we spoke a little bit about that. That's had 300 love hearts. It is kind of true. Someone else here has said, the surveyor will not check behind or move furniture or lift flooring like rugs, and it's in the T's and C's that you cannot make a claim against them for anything that they've missed. You would be better off getting a tradie to check the drains, roof, electric boiler, etc. That's interesting. So someone else here said that the snag list, this is for new builds I believe, the snag list should ideally happen the month before you are due to get the keys, and that this is also the day you should line up having things like blinds measured and planned in advance. I think snagging is to do with new builds, I believe, I think. Someone here has said, look up your solicitor on LinkedIn. You might have been assigned a trainee who will mess up the exchange 6 months into the process, and you'll find yourself hopeless for a few months while you look for something else. We didn't do that. That sounds a bit over the top, but if you want to check your solicitor on LinkedIn, go for it. Or you can just ask your solicitor how long they've been in the business for, and that sort of thing, you know. You can just ask them. I went to see the house without the estate agent and done a deal there and then. I recommend this. And they said, and we both used the same solicitor. It was so fast. That's interesting. I don't know how you would do that, but okay. We actually did go to a second viewing without this estate agent, and that was really good because we spoke to the seller and we managed to exchange contact details, and throughout the whole process we were able to talk to each other about everything, and it was like the best thing ever. It was so handy. So definitely I would personally recommend booking a second viewing, not to do the deal behind the estate agent's back, because don't do that, but do it to exchange contact details, and then you can actually like keep in touch. If there's issues on the other side, they can chase, and if there's issues on your side, you can chase, but then you can speak to each other. I think that's really handy. Someone here has said, don't be afraid to query things or chase things up if it's moving super slow, or your solicitor or estate agent is being really unclear or unhelpful. Also, don't worry, it will all work out in the end. From someone who had 2 properties fall through and finally completed on the 3rd property and cried most weeks from the stress of spending my entire life savings, oh bless. I regret getting so worked up about it all, bless. That's horrible. I couldn't imagine this sale like going through the process and then it falling through. So fair play for people that have gone through the process multiple times. I can imagine it just feels like really bad, and yeah, glad that she's in her house now. She must feel so great. Someone else here said, I was naive. I had saved about £5,000 over the deposit value, thinking that gives me money to get a bed and the first 2 months of bills, at least, until I got the final invoice from my solicitors, who took 6 months to complete in a no-chain property. Now, it's you're going to be very surprised how expensive things are. Your first mortgage repayment is going to be higher than your other ones, so it will always depend on when you move into the property. For example, if you move in the middle of the month, you will probably be paying for the rest of that month and the following month in the first month's mortgage repayment. So you'll be paying 1.5 times your usual mortgage repayment in the first one. And if you move in earlier in the month, it could be nearly double your mortgage payment for the first month. So that's really something to bear in mind. Yeah, our mortgage payments here are very expensive. So luckily we moved in later on in Feb, so we didn't have to pay too much in our first month. But in terms of bills and mortgage repayments and also buying furniture, you need to make sure you've got enough, because honestly it adds up so fast. Someone else here said, do not be intimidated by the professionals. You're the client. Yes, take advice from the solicitors, but also look into it yourself, and don't be afraid to chase if you're not getting answers. from all parties. If I had just chased the estate agents to chase the vendors sooner, we could have saved a month on exchange. Good luck to all first-time buyers. Now, that is very true. You can use the estate agents to help push the other side along, because you can't obviously speak to the seller's solicitor. The only way you got to communicate anything is through the estate agents, unless you speak to the sellers and ask them to chase on their end. But you can call the estate agents that are selling the property and say to them, you know, can you please move them along because we're waiting for this inquiry, it's taken ages, and usually things get done the same day. So you'd be surprised about how much they can actually help, even though ours were quite rude near the end of it. But someone else here said the inquiry stage is the longest and most frustrating waiting game out of all the stages. Chase weekly and use the estate agents to communicate with the seller too. So literally exactly what we just said. That is so true. The inquiry stage is the longest. I think ours in general on our side took 2 months. On the seller's side, it took about 5 months because of the property developer. So it can take quite a long time, and it will depend on how quick both solicitors are. The thing is, if you have a really, really good solicitor, but the seller solicitor is really bad, then it might be quite a long process. But if you've got 2 solicitors that are really quick, really on it, then the process should generally be like quicker for you. So you don't know your luck really. You just have to kind of try it out and hope for the best. Someone else here said, don't put all of your money into a deposit and leave yourself with nothing for decorating. Often that extra £5,000 makes no real difference to monthly repayments. Save it to redecorate. That is very true. Someone else here, which I think is quite important, assume that it will take 6 months, and if it's quicker, then you'll be pleasantly surprised. Both houses, we were told it's going to be done really quickly, and it took 6 months for the first and 4 months for the other. I totally agree with this. I think we went into the process thinking it's going to take like 3 months and end up taking 6.5. So we was obviously disappointed. We were so sure that we'd be in the house before Christmas last year, and we just weren't. So I think definitely something to bear in mind. Just give yourself that 6 months. If we did that, then in our minds, it would have just been an extra, half a month, and we actually wouldn't have been that stressed. So definitely do that. Set your expectations, 100%. Someone else here said, get the survey done ASAP. Our broker told us to wait for the offer, and now it's the only thing that's not completed on our end. So that sounds to me like they've had a pretty quick sale, because organising a surveyor and getting the results doesn't take that long. We actually done it the second our offer got accepted. We thought that's the one thing we can control, and you know, we can send across the search results to our solicitor, and yeah, that was great. So I think doing that off the bat is really good, because you can tick that off your list and that's done. And usually you can just call around different surveyors in the area or look online for reviews and stuff. But ours, we booked ours, and he came like 2 weeks after we called, and then we got the results maybe 1 to 2 weeks after, and so it was about a month, give or take. So yeah, if I was you, start looking at getting that done ASAP. Someone else here has said location is everything. Another person has said, don't believe a word the estate agent says and refer everything they say to your solicitor. Someone else said, don't expect things to move fast. Someone else said how long the process takes in total. I thought it would take a month. I mean, a month? That's very quick. Someone else here said mortgage repayments again. Checking warranty for the boiler. Never get bullied into giving the sellers more money. Very true. Someone else here said, try and find somewhere with no onward chain. Our whole process was relatively stress-free and easy. Now, yes, having no onward chain is going to be the best thing for you, because you're not going to be waiting on other people. And if you don't have a chain either behind you, and you're either a first-time buyer or you're coming out of like rented accommodation or living with family and stuff, like perfect. You have like the perfect scenario. But saying that, some people even in no chains have issues and delays. So it's luck of the draw. You just don't know until you actually go through it, to be honest. Someone else here has said, do not feel pressured to go with the recommended solicitors from the estate agent. They will make you feel like it's going to make the process quicker, but often cost you more, and the service isn't as good. I've heard that many a times. Another one, estate agents lie. Someone else here has said, your first mortgage payment is generally higher. This was a last minute shock to us. So yeah, again, like I said earlier, it is definitely going to be higher, and it will just depend on when you move. the later on in the month, the less it will be. So try and aim for later in the month if you can. And yeah, there's like 560 comments right now, so I can't go through all of them, but those are just a few, and I think, you know, some of them are so useful, and some things that I totally forgot about, and there's just stuff on here that is just really great for first-time buyers and knowing a little bit of information, especially going into it blindly and not really knowing anything about it at all. I think it's a really great first step into getting a bit of an idea on what to expect and things like that. So I hope you found something in there useful. I mean, me even reading those comments and been reading them over the past few days, I'm finding them useful, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know this, didn't know that, I forgot about this, forgot about that. So yeah, there's some really useful tips in there. So definitely go and check that out on my TikTok, because there's loads more comments and good pieces of tips and advice and stuff on there that you probably find really useful. But yeah, I just wanted to get this on a video, in a video format, for some people that might not have TikTok or don't go on TikTok or hasn't even seen that post, because there's just, like I said, there's some things on there that I just think are super useful for all the first-time buyers out there. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope something in there was useful to you, and I hope to see you next time.